That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 27. It's Wednesday, December 2nd, 2015. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, joined as always on location at my house.
That's right.
Pregame Engineer.
27 is a very special number to me. You never would have known this, but that was my jersey number of choice as a young adolescent soccer player. So
That's cool.
Love 27.
Well, you know, and on the macabre side of things, the 27 club is when people die off at 27, so we just got to make it to 28, man.
Oh, man, 27 feels like 29's one, too.
Yeah.
It's like crazy. That latter half, not quite making it to 30 is bad news for entertainers.
That's correct. So, what you drinking on today, man?
Well, as I told the Periscope folks earlier, I'm stealing some of your Jim Beam Black Label and ginger ale. I'm going to finish that up. I'm going to rattle the glass because I know the fans love that. But the real deal here is the Southern Tier Mocha. With a K, M-O-K-A-H.
Mocha.
Stout brewed with chocolate and coffee. I've not had it. I've kind of made a commitment that when we do these things with time to plan ahead, that I will have a bomber of something craft. And so this is my craft bomber of the day. Periscope folks, check that out.
It's pretty sweet. I might have to steal a sip here or two.
You're welcome to.
So, to go along with what you're drinking here, by the way, I'm drinking Jim Beam Black and Coke because that's what I do. And for a PETM first, if I get to the second one, I'll just make it right here. I pulled the bar right over here, so I've got it.
Well, hopefully you'll shut up long enough to actually take a few sips of your drink, and then we'll be all right.
No kidding, right? So, going along with what you're drinking today, I have a surprise for you. It's cool as crap. Our biggest fan, which is also my sister, Stephanie, at Steph Socks Woo on Twitter, got us a present, and I'm revealing it for the first time to Sherwin here.
You're so much better at surprises than me.
This is the official
Holy crap!
PETM koozie.
Oh my God, that is so awesome!
Look, so on the front we've got our picture, the official podcast picture. On the back, it's got the at PETM podcast with each of our handles, and look on the bottom. I love that. It says, "Welcome y'all," and woo!
Stephanie is fantastically creative. I'm wowed by this.
I'm firing my drink.
I don't
right
want to say
right
too many times. I'm trying to do better about that.
Yeah.
This is so cool. Stephanie, you're awesome. Hopefully you get to watch this later or download it or whatever when you're not working. I saw the really cool post that you had about getting the care package of citrus stuff from a guest. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Stephanie is a VIP concierge.
Actually, I don't want to stretch it out.
in Hawaii, actually. So she's got all the connections and everything. So we're going to be bringing these to the track. We're going to be all over the place with these. So these are going to get a lot of miles for sure.
Right, which is why we need to go to more races.
That is very true. I've got nothing against that.
Serena, you need to find more Comic Cons to go to.
Our producer working on some homework back there from her job, so she's not joining us today, but you might hear her in the background every once in a while. It's officially off season, man. It's like
crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe it because you invest so much emotion as a fan and so much commitment to time. Like, I mean, if I have it available, I give it trucks. I give it Nation or Xfinity.
I did
it.
I did it pre-show.
Give it trucks and Xfinity and Cup every weekend. I don't want to miss it. And you give it your all for 38 weeks.
Yeah.
And actually, it ends up being 41 because they take a couple weeks off.
Yeah.
So you're invested for what is that?
80% of the year.
80-something percent of the year. And now it's done. You just have to talk about it on a podcast.
So y'all don't worry. It ain't that we're taking off the off season ourselves.
Oh, hell no.
Nope. This ain't summer vacation or winter vacation or whatever you want to call it. We've got a lot of actually cool segments we've been throwing back and forth that I think everybody's going to enjoy. I'm going to enjoy doing. I know you'll enjoy it too. But and we're looking at interviews too. We had Matt Bishop on the last time we talked. and that was so much fun. That was
having
the coolest.
Guest changed the game for me on what this conversation can be, and it's our hope that we'll get some of the guys that we want to have. Obviously, we have to set an expectation for where we're at as a podcast and understand what kind of guests we could get. We know we've already Matt Bishop committed at a tweet up at Darlington. What a great kid. Taking great pictures. He's committed to posting a picture, his favorite 25 pictures leading up to Christmas. So for sure follow M. Bishop Photos for those really cool pics. He posted one from Atlanta that he took on the roof that was a panoramic that was a really neat looking shot.
I'll have to take a look at that. I hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
But before we get to the offseason, I mean, we did have a whole race and a whole championship, or a whole 3 championships that were
all
awarded.
3 of them.
Yeah, as it turns out. In the trucks, Eric Jones.
Wow, the kid is a rising star. There's no reason to put a label or a comparison on what he is. He impressed Kyle Busch at the Snowball Derby 3 years ago. Kyle Busch did his best to get him a couple of truck starts right after that. Put him in a truck part-time last year, put him in a truck full-time, and Gibbs put him in a Xfinity car part-time this year, and he even subbed handsomely for Denny Hamlin and Matt Kenseth. The kid is a rock star. He's barely 20 years old, cannot even buy himself a beer, and he's knocking on the door of a Cup ride.
For sure, and Cup success. It's neat seeing the new class come up now, and you can kind of feel who these stars are going to be ahead of time. Because Jimmy Johnson's 40-something years old, and
I believe he's
Dale
about
Jr.
to turn 40. Junior's going to turn
41 this year.
41 in October,
or next year.
Early November.
Yep. Gordon's gone. Tony's leaving. Yeah, Tony's leaving. Peanut Gallery doesn't like Tony leaving.
Yeah, Tony's leaving. He'll turn 45 sometime next year. I can't remember when his birthday is. It doesn't matter, but it's a changing of the guard in a lot of ways.
I was about to use that term. I feel like this is the first changing of the guard that I've been through as a fan. We've had a few here and there that have gone, but the guys that we quote unquote grew up with, which is only the last 11 years or so that we've been big fans. But the guys that we grew up with are now retiring, and so we have a whole new class coming in.
It is. I think that's totally appropriate to say that we are experiencing our first changing the guard as fans. But I think we're in an interesting time that you do have multiple superstars that are leaving the sport, and multiple superstars that are still in the sport and doing the things that make it appropriate to call them superstars. And and that's moving forward, it's Jimmy Johnson and it's Kyle Busch, and they're maybe 5 to 10 years ahead of where Brad and Joey are, and what we expect for the new generation with Chris Buescher winning his championship in Xfinity. He looks
perfectly
poised.
Yep.
For a Cup ride very soon. You got Chase stepping into the 24. You couldn't have more pressure than that. I got him too, and in my ear right now. And you hope he lives up to the not expectation, but lives up to what the 24 is. Because if he does, how amazing would that be? And then you got Eric Jones trying to find a Toyota ride now that Gibbs is full up with 4. Is Kenseth ready to back off? I mean, his kid's a rising star in the ARCA and the K&N series. He's 22 years old. He quit studying engineering at Clemson because he was getting good enough at the racing to warrant that being a decent decision. Got his dad's blessing to do that. He started an Xfinity race this year in a Gibbs car, like at Chicagoland. So, The sport is poised for the next group of young fans to grab it. Does NASCAR have the ability to sell it to them?
It's a good question. That is the question, really. And especially, like we've been saying, it is the changing of the guard here. So who are these, and are the old fans, that are in their 40s and 50s that are, going to be around for another 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
Are they going to grasp onto the new class as well?
I would certainly hope obviously that the people that are in their 40s and 50s that are invested in the sport, and I have friends in those categories, and they've asked me, they're like, I was a Gordon fan or I was a Stewart fan, and they're like, he's like, and I'm trying to sell them on Chase, and I'm trying to sell them on Eric Jones, and I'm trying to sell them on Chris Buescher. And I'm like, because I don't necessarily pull for a manufacturer as much as I like to pull for somebody that you just latch on to a guy and pull for him. And you don't even have to be a NASCAR fan. Here's the crazy thing about NASCAR is you don't have to be a fan of any one driver because they're all out there running around at the same time. Mm-hmm. You can pull for 3 or 4 guys like we've talked about. It used to be kind of a Ford thing or a Dodge thing or whatever you want to call it, where you had a guy, you had Carl Edwards, and I had Brad Keselowski, and so we jib-jab back and forth about that all the time, having the same number one guy, and that to me just makes the sport that much more fun when they're all running out there together. You don't have to be just a fan of one guy. Mm-hmm.
So you've already talked about Chris Buescher, so we talked about trucks, we talked about Xfinity. Let's move on to Cup, and we'll talk about Cup. And I think fast forwarding toward the end, really, with Larson chasing down Brad Keselowski, I thought that was an intriguing battle there. I don't know if there's anything else to talk about. We've already talked about the reasons that these guys have gotten here and all that. I don't want to repeat ourselves and everything. We do end up with 4 guys chasing for the championship in this one race. So, okay, let's do it, I thought that was a cool deal going on with Larson trying to get his first win in Cup. I thought it was pretty intriguing. Kyle Busch was leading the 4 guys that were in the chase. So it was like, okay, well, it looks like Kyle Busch can...
And running in third at the time.
Yeah, Kyle Busch can win the championship, and we may see a great race here at the end to see Larson pass Brad Keselowski. I was actually intrigued by it. How about you?
I was very intrigued, and how about me? I'm gonna sidestep you a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna go down an alley real quick. How about the Brad Keselowski, who we used to essentially call the closer, not the same closer that Kevin Harvick is, but a guy that would be fast all day, show up late, and steal the race. We saw it happen at a couple of different tracks.
We saw it happen to Brad a week earlier.
But that's what I'm saying. How about two races in a row at mile and a half? And Brad is, he's out front, but
I'm making my
it's
second.
Pretty obvious he's not going to win the race if it goes green. Mm-hmm. I thought that was interesting. So we could flip it back to Kyle Larson. Everybody knows Kyle Larson is a guy that likes to run the cushion, and that's dirt racing talk for the cushion that builds up in a sprint car race or an open wheel dirt car race. When these guys are running the rim because it's the fastest way around, it's the way you spend the most time on the gas. And certainly in dirt sprint cars, that fuel's not an issue. You don't pit. Like, they start you with enough fuel to finish the race. So it burns a little more fuel, but if you've got the car control and you can keep it from bumping over that cushion and hitting the wall, you can go fast because you can stay on the gas for way longer than anybody running the bottom, even though that's super short. That's the shortest way around by a couple of tenths, I think, if you run the rim around the whole track.
Yeah. So, point being, I was very happy with that. And then we get our moment, come on, man.
We get our Chris Carter, our Monday night set guy. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
So we had a caution with 7 to go, 8 to go, whatever it was, that NASCAR was just absolutely, I think they were proud as they could be to throw this caution so that we could have this final showdown.
Oh, they were strutting like a peacock,
8 to go. Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that it felt like 50 to 70% of the people were like, are you kidding me right now?
Right. So the first thing that TV zoomed in on was a water bottle on the apron off the racing surface. And
way off the racing surface.
And it was, is that it? Are we talking about a water bottle? And then whether they changed their story or not, They then zoomed in on they said there was a piece of metal on the track. Now, any normal piece of metal, a piece of sheet metal or something like that, or maybe even thicker than that.
Well, the crush panels typically.
Right, crush panel. If you run over that and it shoots up into the stands or something, you got problems, right?
Well, it's easy to cut a tire, too, with those.
Sure. This piece of metal in particular, while no cars were driving near it, was blowing toward the apron because of just the wind. It wasn't a piece stuck out there. It wasn't a brake rotor. It wasn't a rod.
It wasn't an axle.
Yeah, we're talking about a piece of paper essentially blowing in the wind.
Tinfoil. Now, crush panels in these race cars are definitely thicker than tinfoil, but if like you said, like when they're going across the start finish line 2 or 3, within 2 or 3 seconds of each other, they're creating a lot of wind current. And if that little piece of whatever it is willing to get airborne just based on a car going by it, nah,
not gonna happen.
The way these cars are set up, y'all, the splitters are sitting on the ground by that point because they've accelerated to the point that the splitter's sitting on the ground, and most of the cars that are set up to win, they're actually going to be rubbing the ground a little bit at that point because of the way they set the geometry and the shocks up. So if they actually did hit it, it would blow up in the air and be fluttered away from the racetrack.
Right. This is not a projectile anymore, too. It would have to get folded up into a little pea.
Nobody's running it over because you're going to hit it, and then off it goes.
So at that point, this is a fan podcast, and we texted each other. I said, well, I got to root for Kyle Busch now, which, whether you like him or don't like him or whatever, it's for the sake of the legitimacy of this race, we kind of need Kyle Busch to win so that it's not, Kyle Busch got screwed out of the win by a piece of tinfoil.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Like, they put us in a spot where, and I'll be honest with you, based on what I said early in the season when we first started this podcast was right about the time Kyle Busch was coming back. Mm-hmm. And my comments then were, I think this is going to change his perspective and he can win a championship. Okay, mm-hmm. I'm not going to pat myself on the back because he did. But to your point, at that stage of the race, we needed to legitimize what was happening because this stuff's going to play on SportsCenter. It's going to play on Fox Sports. It's going to play on NBC Sports, who's got the coverage. And you need it to play out to be, a sport.
Right. So Kyle Busch does win it. So good for him. Bummer for Kyle Larson. I think he's on the cusp. More than anybody, more than Austin Dillon,
certainly
who had a lot of hype.
Closer than Austin Dillon and Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Yep,
those guys aren't doing much. I mean, Austin's doing more than Ricky is, but the young gun, the set of young guns we thought was going to be like the first layer of young guns, they haven't done much in 2 years of racing stock cars. Ricky Stenhouse, Austin Dillon, and Kyle Larson haven't done as much as we expected.
And in that same time frame, I think people like Joey Logano have exceeded what we expected out of them based on their first few years. So maybe there's a little, we'll call it honeymoon period to start with of a couple years. I don't know. Versus somebody like Casey Kane, who we were fans of, and right out of the gate, he's winning 6 races a year.
Right out of the gate, he has 5 second-place finishes, which was unprecedented for a rookie, I believe. And then he does get his win, and then he wins 6, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, that's big. Junior was a guy that did that. Mm-hmm. But a Kenseth never did.
Yep.
Tony was a guy like that. So it's hard to figure out how do you judge. Like, the worst thing you can do is try to compare guys to each other. But what you can do is sort of compare, like, how their careers began, because what you see is, Jeff Gordon ran a whole year without winning a race, which is like, how is that even possible to understand?
No.
And then he wins a race, and he wins the Coca-Cola 600, and then it's on. Like, for 5 years, it's on red, just redlining how well he was doing.
So what?
So I don't know, and I guess I'm wondering here, and you're trying to stop me, and I appreciate
it's all
that.
good.
But like, what I'm trying to figure out is, what should our expectation be? Like, if we think somebody's going to be a legitimate, like, win races race car driver, how long can you wait? How many years? How many races before you go? Maybe it's done. Maybe you never got there.
I think third year. I'm calling third year on it. That you need the first two to figure it out at this point. How long did it take Joey Logano to get a we'll use this word a few times this podcast, but a legitimate win? He won out there.
Yeah, his last year at Gibbs. He won at Pocono.
Pocono was, but he had the rain out. Was that Pocono or was that?
That was his rookie year. The rain out was at Loudon.
Yeah, rain out was Loudon.
And then
sorry.
it was 4 years
Pocono
later that he kicked everybody's ass at Pocono.
Yeah.
I mean, just ran away from him. And that was the year after that crap with Harvick. Remember, he dumped him in turn 2.
And then made fun of his wife.
Well, it appeared to be no reason. And then what you have there is a 22-year-old kid who's trying to figure out where he's at in the sport. He's getting pushed around. He finally has a car that's fast. He's running second and first all day, and Harvick cuts him no slack. Okay, Harvick, you have the right to do that as a race car driver. But now that we're in today, I don't want to hear Harvick say anything about what Joey did to Kenseth at Kansas.
Exactly.
He better be mum.
Right. And he has, I think a lot of them have been.
Oh, he hadn't said a word about it.
Right. So it brings up the question. I just used the word, and this word's come up a lot on Twitter and stuff. I think, unfortunately, as always, you and I are aligned in our thinking. The word legitimate. Is this a legitimate championship? People want Kyle Busch's championship to have an asterisk on it. And I think there's two parts to that. One is his whole comeback after the however many races, 11 races, how many was it?
Yeah, he missed 11.
That he missed? Yeah, so he missed half of the regular season almost.
Yeah, 40% of it for sure.
Right. And the other half is I think people are finally disgruntled with, I say finally, it's only been 2 years, but people are disgruntled with this style of chase where if you look at it, the most popular driver didn't make it. The guy who's been running the best this year, Joey Logano, didn't make it. So whether you're fans of them or not or whatever. So I think that's the two parts. We've already talked about the one part with Kyle Busch coming back. And we
talked about it on about 3 different podcasts.
Right. And I am perfectly fine with it based on those circumstances. I saw people like McGee who got questions. And I like McGee. When McGee does like a one-word response, that's perfect. It might have been Pockris too, but the one-word responses are great. They're like, would your mind change if he had broken his leg skiing? And they go, yes. It's like, okay, there you go.
Yeah, well, without doing a Steak Shapiro on morning radio and cough and sputter and burp and fart into the microphone. What I would say about it is NASCAR had painted up a rule book, and Kyle Busch colored inside the lines.
Right.
So, and he won 5 races, which Kevin Harvick did, Jimmy Johnson did, and then a guy won more than that, and he was Joey Logano. He didn't even have a chance to win.
Right.
So, it feels like he had a pretty good season.
Right. So my beef with it, and I agree with you, it's a legitimate championship. These are the rules. He won by the rules. The problem is, what if they change the championship to rock, paper, scissors? Right? Now I'm going to the extreme here. I'm going morning radio talk show or sports show guys, right?
Shock jock
stuff. If it's rock, paper, scissors, and he wins the championship, and his name is on the trophy, and he hoists it above his head, and it goes down the record books, and at this point, everybody who's ever won a championship is going to get to the Hall of Fame. So he's a Hall of Famer, best rock, paper, scissors, but that's not even written in there. He is a championship NASCAR race, cup driver.
Yeah.
Right? That's also, in my opinion, if that's the rules, that's a legitimate championship. So what I'm trying to say is that I believe the championship in its current format, it's 10 races. I believe 9 of those races are normal Cup racing events, and the driver has full control. I believe that one of those, and I'm not saying that it's a particular racetrack, I'm saying just depending on where you are at that time, one of your races is a coin flip. You flip heads, you're going to the next round. You flip tails, there's nothing you can do in the other 9 races. You're not going to make it to the next round. Now, people can say you can win, but you can't win every single race. That's not how it is, you know?
Right, it's not 1v1.
Right.
Right, it's 1v15, and then it's 1v11, and then it's 1v7.
Right. And you have to beat all the other guys on the track, too.
Right, so rolling a die, or, well, you didn't say die, you said flipping a coin. Flipping a coin, that 50% chance gets diminished because all the other guys get to flip a 50% chance coin.
Right.
So you lose.
So who rolled tails? I say Dale Jr. rolled tails at Talladega.
Well, Kevin Harvick rolled tails for him.
He did. Matt Kenseth rolled some tails for Joey Logano, depending on how you see that, but we've talked about it.
Matt Kenseth rolled tails at Martinsville for Joey Logano.
Yep. I would say Carl Edwards, in a sense, maybe at the rainout at Phoenix, because Carl Edwards had the best average finish by the end of it, so you just sort of say, okay, which one could it have been?
Yeah.
But it got rained out. He showed a lot of emotion when he found out. He was live on camera when
that was awesome.
Yeah.
I love the way he reacted.
Yeah, it was very pure. Just that, and he was trying to.
Just like,
he was being good for television. He goes, "Dang it!" and walked off. So, oops, I just smacked the table.
That'll happen.
Everybody probably heard it. So, I think those guys rolled tails, and in those same races, some other guys rolled heads to get them through the next round. So, I don't like the heads tails part. I don't like the coin flip. What I want is 10 races where every guy has control of it. I don't know how you accomplish that at this point.
I think the biggest thing NASCAR suffers from is the idea that they think they can compete with fall team sports for eyeballs. I don't think you would have ever had to go to a chase or an elimination chase if you didn't have to compete with college and professional football.
That's a good point. So that's 2 months into the season, right? Or 2 months into the football season. So is our answer to cut off, how many is that? 8 races off the entire schedule?
I don't think
what do you
so.
think?
I think you can get logistics in line to where you could condense the schedule. Maybe you only have to cut 4 races.
Yeah.
But you run, as we've discussed, or at least has been discussed, and many drivers have supported,
and fans,
running a weekday race, and then running a weekend race. Like run a Saturday, and then a Thursday, and then a Sunday. And obviously you have to get funky with logistics. You need to be in close proximity to do that. You don't always have to do it, though. Like I said, we only have to get 8 weeks back, right?
Yeah. How about double headers? Works in baseball, right? Not same day, but let's do a Friday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday even at a Charlotte and Darlington.
Why couldn't we do Martinsville and Richmond?
Yeah.
In a 4-day stretch.
Right.
Why couldn't we do that?
Right.
Why couldn't we do Dover and Pocono in a 4 or 5 day stretch? Or Pocono and Watkins Glen?
Atlanta and Talladega.
Atlanta and Talladega. Atlanta Talladega for sure. I mean, you have to deploy 2 different haulers because
that's true.
2 different kind of cars, but we do that anyway. Cars are on their way back from the West Coast, and the other cars have already left for wherever.
True.
Bristol, Atlanta, doesn't matter what it is.
True.
Like, we can condense the schedule. I think you got to stop competing with football.
Well, and one thing that goes to show is what happened at the championship celebration portion of the broadcast.
You're celebrating the most important moment of your season, and NBC Sports Network has committed to you for years, and I'm talking about billions of dollars, to show your sport for the second half of the season and the playoff series, and they cut
From
to
NBC
football
broadcast,
highlights.
Football
because
highlights.
we backed into Sunday Night Football on NBC.
Yep.
Whose ratings are, and this is going to depress some of y'all that are listening to this because you may not know this, but their ratings are 4x what NASCAR's ratings are.
Yeah, and by the way, when at the switchover or after switching over, there was a 12.4 million eyeball average on that football pre-show and leading into the football game, right? The end of the race had a 7.6 million person average. So it's hard to blame NBC for that. They just gained 4 million viewers by switching to football pregame, but it does show you where NASCAR stands in comparison.
And I think the clouded situation there is the 7.6 rating was probably to do with the people that came to football early and then just said, oh, they're still doing their NASCAR crap.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go finish cooking dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And left the TV on.
Yeah. That was disappointing when it happened. That, you know, if you had to cut into a Giants-Patriots game that's already in progress, I get it. When you have to cut into football pregame to listen to Gordon's last interview in NASCAR as a driver, to watch Kyle Busch put on one hell of a burnout. Mm-hmm. He might have done that on broadcast, so I might be just
burnout probably made broadcast, but the post-race interview,
but the post-race and Victory Lane did
none of that.
Yeah,
they had a good 35 minutes of coverage that went on after they cut to Sunday Night Football.
Right. So, bummer there. Let's move on. I've got a good holy bleep this week.
Yay!
Let me see if I can.
Usually I'm the one that comes up with the holy bleeps, but I need some help during the off season because I'm running out.
Here it comes.
Holy shit!
There's the sound effect. I thought this was cool, and I noticed it as I was watching it happen. The most popular drivers this year. Do you remember? Do you know who they are from each series? They haven't announced Cup yet, but you know who it's going to be.
I know who it is for Xfinity for sure.
Xfinity's Chase
I'd like
Elliott.
to guess at Trucks.
Trucks, go for it.
I'm going to guess that it is Daniel Suarez.
John Hunter Nemechek.
Nemechek! Way to go, John Hunter.
So the three drivers who are most popular, who's Nemechek's
They're
daddy?
legacies. They're all legacies.
Who's Elliott's daddy and who's Junior's daddy?
Shows you how much legacy matters in this sport.
Yeah. Isn't that wild? I mean, Nemechek, he's a good driver and he's up and coming too, but he's not Eric Jones in popularity. He's not.
Well, he won a race, which means that self-sponsored team is going to get a huge boost.
Right.
Obviously, he benefits from his dad. His dad's had a team in some capacity in some series for like 15, 20 years. But, they won a race in an unsponsored car, and that's a really popular thing to do.
Yep.
His dad was very likable. I mean, we used to call him Front Row Joe because he could qualify like a bad man.
Yep.
And, Chase, obviously, the pedigree.
Right.
Hall of Fame dad.
Right.
And the kid is as eloquent as you'd ever want a race car driver to be.
Exactly.
I mean, barely even cusses on the scanner.
I think his daddy taught him as much about that as he did racing. But, that was my holy bleep. I didn't know how many people would pick up on that necessarily, but when I saw it, I was intrigued by the fact that they're all legacy.
Well, you know what Cup's going to be. It's going to be Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Well, and that's what I was saying. We
like
don't know who it is.
The greatest legacy driver of all time.
Right.
Because not only does he have charisma, but he also has the performance career that you would want out of a legacy driver. He's not won a championship, but no offense to Kyle Petty, but he's certainly been more than what Kyle Petty was as a driver.
Yeah.
He's won 23 races, I think, now with the Phoenix win, including 2 Daytona 500s. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, for sure.
Including 2 formerly Busch Series championships in the late 90s.
Yeah, and he's one of those who's won, he's one of the top Busch Series race winners, isn't he?
I think he probably won 20 Busch races.
Yeah.
I have to look back at it.
Like Mark Martin or something, who has a ungodly number of wins.
There's not a lot of guys. Yeah, I mean, his dad did a great job. It's great beer.
Mm-hmm.
His dad did a really good job of keeping him down. I think Richard Childress tried to follow that model with Austin and Ty, in that, okay, just because you won a little bit in this series doesn't mean you got it figured out. So we're going to race a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure you got it figured out. Obviously, it hadn't panned out at the Cup level for Austin. We already talked about that.
Yeah,
though. But,
yeah.
Junior raced for three or four full seasons in Busch with back-to-back championships before his dad put him in a car.
Mm-hmm. Man, I think that rounds out the season for us. So we're straight.
Have we closed the season?
We are officially in the offseason now.
We're officially in the offseason, which means Exalta is now on Junior's car. And you're like, who in the hell is Exalta? Well, that was DuPont before they did what DuPont always does. For those of you not privy to the research community, DuPont researches, creates, and builds a thing, and then they sell it to somebody for a boatload of cash.
Right.
And that's what they did with their truck painting division, which is Axalta now. And Junior,
Gordon ran that car for several races this year, didn't he?
He ran the Axalta car. He's run it for 3 years now, I believe.
Oh, well, 3 years.
Somebody
Sure.
can probably yell at me. I think DuPont sold it 4 years ago. But, Gordon was the one that really corporatized NASCAR in the non-alcohol and tobacco arena, which revolutionized the sport, really, especially as, commercial television had to go away from particularly tobacco sponsorship. But, yeah, Junior unveiled the car. It looks sharp. Doesn't look like any 88 car you've ever seen. Looks very similar to some of the Gordon cars you've seen, but Junior doesn't like the flames, or at least he has the respect that the flames are for Gordon. So It's not flames. It's a classic fade transition from red all the way to yellow, back up past the door panel. So that's officially an off-season thing.
I think you've got some beef with Bill Nye. Of all people, guys.
Of all
Bill
people.
Nye, the
all right,
science guy.
I guess I want to preface this before I get, because I'm not really going to go negative.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep it uplifting for sure. But Bill Nye published a book, which
what's the name of the book? You remember?
Can you Google it really quick?
I'll do the Google thing.
I'm going to be Joe Rogan
Bill
here for a minute and ask you to Google it. But
book.
It's
Undeniable. No.
I thought it was something with a colon and then some more stuff.
Undeniable. Evolution and the Science of Creation, 2014. Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe it's a new book.
No, I think it's newer than that. I think Undeniable is his thing, but I think the post colon
Unstoppable.
that sounds like it. That sounds like it. Anyway, what Bill said, and I need to read the book before I really get after him, or I need to have an interview with him, which I'll never get. But one of the things he said was he's kind of disappointed in NASCAR in terms of fuel efficiency and how they're not really leading the way, and that maybe a challenge to NASCAR would be is what if you only gave a team 21 gallons of fuel and had to run a full-length race? Like, what would NASCAR engineers come up with? And I think it was a backhanded and then a forward-handed compliment. I think he understands that NASCAR engineers are as smart as any engineer in any occupation. I think his concern is, why isn't NASCAR using their platform to drive fuel-efficient behavior?
Mm-hmm.
So my initial comment would be they never have been. They don't have any grant money to do that research. American car companies, and now Japanese, are not charging them with leading the way on technology innovation for passenger cars. Like the sport has took a fork in like the late 80s
Or even earlier when it used to be stock car racing, and it was
70s. It's not been since the 70s.
Race on Sunday and sell it on Monday, right? So
yeah.
They haven't, and they would come out with these ridiculous cars to sell on the showroom floor, only because they wanted to put that car in the race.
Right, because you used to have to build 500
right
in order to run the car.
Right.
And you used to not even have to run the same year model car.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was teams that showed up at the 71 Daytona 500 with 69 model cars.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different world than we live in today.
Oh, for sure. So here's my thoughts. When I heard it, I thought, that's intriguing. Let me think about it. We do limit other things, right? In NASCAR, we limit tires. And they had to come up with a way for, if it were up to these guys, if they had unlimited tires throughout the entire race, it would be a little bit different. Goodyear would come at them with a little bit different stuff. Give me more grip, and everybody takes 4 tires every time, right?
Depends on the track, though.
It does. But they do limit that. They limit some other, they limit the carb. They limit
11 cents at Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just saying.
So, and then they're rerunning stickers and stuff. So limiting fuel, I think that's intriguing. That's an interesting thought. Think about running the race, and they're going, well, he could do this, but he's got to save fuel because he's only got 12 gallons left. Now 21 gallons for the entire race. I think that's kind of laughable right now, right? Maybe we could get there in
huge
30
leap
years.
In fuel consumption to power ratio,
right?
And I think we've seen a lot of pushback and disconcertion this year as NASCAR reduced the horsepower potential of the motors, and people were like, "Well, why the hell did you do that?" Like NASCAR is about loud and horsepower,
right?
And beer, obviously, and beer. But they're not limiting that, by the way. But it's about loud and horsepower. And we don't really care how much fuel you burn. And the other side, and here's the cul-de-sac I'll head into on this angle of the discussion is NASCAR has done some really shady stuff the last 3 or 4 years by running the green ethanol campaign and reducing or increasing the fuel cell capacity based on the fact that, guess what? As every engineer ever knows, if you put ethanol in gasoline, it actually is less efficient.
Well, right. I'm not.
And now that we've reduced horsepower, that wasn't a point of contention at you.
No, not to me.
Now that we reduced horsepower this year by, 150 or 200, guess what? They reduced the fuel cell to 18 from 18.75 gallons.
Right.
Is there all that stuff going on behind the scenes that's not talked about? So I don't know how that ties into the sport should get more efficient and be an innovator and a driver of fuel efficiency. I'm not sure that's the way the sport works financially. I don't know that you could keep people in the stands if you were running a Prius for 500 miles.
at 90 miles or 80 miles an hour.
And as fast as a Prius would go for 500 miles, would burn more than 21 gallons of fuel. FYI.
That's true.
So let's just talk. Let's get real here. Let's be realistic.
Right.
Like, we're rednecks and we like fast cars and loud, but we're not stupid either.
The first thing they'll do is take every battery out of the thing.
You had to cut all the weight. Right. That's the first thing you would do is, the heaviest thing in this gun is all these daggum batteries. And at 80 mile an hour, they ain't doing anything anyway.
Yeah. You know what? I want to see this race now. This sounds actually fun, watching these Priuses run around.
At 80 miles an hour, what happens if you try to do the bump and run? The guy just goes...
middle finger out the window.
Like he wiggles a little bit and goes, boom!
Honking horns at each other. I always thought NASCAR should have horns. That's one thing.
That would be hilarious. Turn signals would be hilarious, too.
So, I don't know that I see where he's going with it. I agree with you in that I think he's overestimating the influence that NASCAR has on the general public in terms of fuel efficiency and on the industry industry wide, I would say.
I think he underestimates the influence that NASCAR has on the American public.
Overestimates is what I'm saying.
He overestimates the influence that NASCAR has on the American public. I don't think he underestimates the capability of NASCAR engineers.
Yeah.
But the other thing I would say is he vastly underestimates the reason and the amount of money behind why NASCAR has been steadfast with their engine technology. And there's a couple reasons. One is horsepower. The other is the more stuff you do to that engine to make it efficient, like it is exponential the cost.
Right.
Like the number of parts and everything. Like it's a center cam cast block. Okay, they went to aluminum. Good.
Right.
They went to all mostly aluminum parts. Except for the crankshaft. Good. But if you go to a dual overhead cam, you have increased the cost of that motor by probably 3x.
Right.
And it already cost on Sunday on Cup race day. The engine is $150,000 of what it costs to build a $300,000 race car.
Right. And just so in case people are wondering too, because we haven't talked about this aspect of it, which is, and I think Bill Nye, of all people, is smart enough to understand, he's not talking about NASCAR burns too much fuel during a race. He's talking about the influence that NASCAR can have if they are to do something like increase fuel efficiency, because the amount of fuel burned during the race is insignificant in the long run compared to everything else that's going on, not only getting drivers to the race in private jets, getting 100,000, 200,000 people to the race, camping and stuff. We see people pouring gasoline on fires in the campground.
Yeah, NASCAR typically they don't do. You don't have a tremendous amount of people flying on a single private jet. But if we equate it to the NFL, for instance,
right.
The Falcons are going to fly to San Francisco to play the 49ers. They're flying probably 100 people if you consider all the staff.
Well, sure.
20,000 gallons of fuel.
Right.
That's a NASCAR weekend.
Right. Right.
And that's one flight. Okay.
That's
so
one football game out of how many are going on? 18 in a weekend.
Yeah,
16
yeah. Typically this time of season it's 16.
Yeah.
Or 17. It's like you have to understand what the impact is. I think if there was enough available grant money, or if the automotive makers wanted to use NASCAR as an avenue for developing technology, they absolutely would win. I mean, just today, Bob Pockris, at Bob Pockris ESPN, the guy's a rock star,
for sure,
tweeted out that Hendrick Motorsports employs between 450 and 500 people, and they have 60 degreed engineers on staff.
Right.
4 cars in Cup, 2 full-time, 5 total cars in the Junior Motorsports fold that is supported by Hendrick, and a truck.
Yep.
60 engineers.
Yep. Over there in Willy Wonka land that we've been to.
The only place I've ever worked.
Fantastic.
The only place I've ever worked that had that many engineers had over 50,000 employees.
Yeah.
So put that into perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, they also probably had closer to 5,000 engineers.
Sure.
Out of the 50. But, I mean, if you're looking at 60, they're looking at 10% of their total employment, closer to 15% of their total employment platform are degreed engineers.
Yeah.
These guys are tough.
Right.
They know what they're doing.
This is the type of banter I think you're going to hear all off-season from the PETM guys, and I'm excited for it. We've got some segments.
We're going to grab headlines and run with them, especially when there's an intelligence quotient involved.
We've been throwing some segments around that I'm actually excited about. Let's start one up maybe next week. We'd talked about one where we're just going to explore a piece of the car and talk about what that piece of the car is. And I think that's going to be, Sherwin's pumping his fists and stuff. I think that's going to be educational to us. I mean, we know a lot about it, but if we dig deep into it and start really getting into it, I think we'll learn some stuff and maybe impart some of that on the fans and everything. So I'm excited about this type of thing that we're going to be talking about over the next 6 weeks, whatever it is, for leading up to the 500 is the next cup race that there's going to be, but we've got all the duels and everything else and qualifying and all that.
We'll get the shootout first, or the showdown.
Yep,
sorry,
showdown,
sprint.
Shootout. Yep, everything.
I don't use your service.
What we've got coming up this weekend, though, the Snowball Derby, and I want to thank Matt Bishop, who we talked to, and he was mentioning it on the podcast, and also Matt Weaver, who covers this thing. I mean, just end to end.
Like a glove.
Yeah, he's got it covered. Snowball Derby is, I believe it's a super late model race. It's not sanctioned by any sanctioning body. It is just this race, and it's the most prestigious super late model race of the year. People coming in from all over the place. And it's this weekend. Past recent winners are like Eric Jones, Kyle Busch, John Hunter Nemechek, most popular
Chase
driver.
Elliott,
Joanna Long. This is where you're seeing the up-and-comers too. So we asked Matt Bishop last week, who should we look for? And I think among his answers, whether he said it, I don't remember, or whether it's implied, watch this Snowball Derby, see what happens. So I'm excited to see what happens there. Let's talk about it next week.
Yeah, we will. We'll talk about how it turns out for sure. But yeah, we've been hearing about Snowball Derby ever since Joanna Long got a full-time ride in Xfinity, which unfortunately has not panned out very well for her. I think it's been 3 years now, and we could talk about that for 10 minutes, but we're not going to. I hope she finds something fun. She won, and it was a big deal, and that was the first time I started paying attention to the Snowball Derby. And then Chase Elliott won at like age 14 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, and he won in 2011.
Yeah, and then 2011, and he's 19. So, yeah, he was 14, maybe about to turn 15. And then you had Eric Jones win, and that was the one that, like, Kyle Busch ran second to him, or ran first for, like, he was probably going to win, and Eric Jones passed him to win.
Right.
And he was like, who the heck is this kid? I got to get this kid in one of my
and guess
trucks.
who he is now?
That's the mindset Kyle Busch is. Like, he's intelligent enough to not let his ego get in the way of the fact that he knew a business opportunity and a development opportunity when he saw it, and he said, I'm going to build a truck for this guy. And he did, and kind of turned out well.
So we've talked about Ryan McGee already in this podcast, but I think to close it out, you gave us a good Ryan McGee quote from Twitter earlier about Denny Hamlin and his knee surgery.
Oh, yeah. And we always want to give Ryan McGee credit because the guy's hilarious. He's a deadpan artist when he's not being a very good reporter. And he said, well, we know it's the off season when Denny Hamlin has a procedure. Denny Hamlin had successful ACL surgery just yesterday, so that's good for him. ACL surgery isn't fun. I know it firsthand.
Apparently this time of year he gets a lot of trolls too, which is funny because you see those. We talked about it in the pre-show for the Periscope people who might still be watching. We talked about it in the pre-show where he and Bob Pockris and I've seen Jeff Gluck do it too, where people send him a tweet that says, and they're just trolling, saying, for the love of God, quit or never write another ESPN article ever.
Yeah.
And Ryan McGee tweets, no.
Just deadpan.
Just deadpan.
He's deadpan. No, it's great. Like, he either is catching a holy ration of crap from NASCAR fans or a holy ration of crap from college football fans because Ryan covers both, and I think he puts passion into both. But he has a very unique very unique column that he does for ESPN.com for football, and that's the bottom 10. And it is so much fun every week to see a prominent school that gets the coveted 5th position, as he calls it, which coveted. Is a team that is generally speaking a program that you would have a lot of respect for, but has a bad run of luck.
And he poo-poos on him a little bit.
Yeah, and I even tweeted at him last week. I was like, how is Georgia Tech not getting consideration for that number 5 spot? Rose Bowl to 3-9. We got to be getting some talk. And I didn't read today's. We may be in it. I don't know. But it's so funny to see the fans that don't understand what the 5th position is, because it was it LSU and UGA back to back,
right? And bookending them will be like Alcorn State and Directional State Hawaii or something.
Oh yeah, it'll be Texas Southern or something or whatever it is. And it'll be teams that are 1-9 or 2-10, and then you'll have like 5-5, or even I think he put Georgia in there.
Yeah,
when they lost 3 in a row, when they went from 6-0 to 6-3
or something
in the middle of, and then Georgia fans lost their minds, just like LSU fans lost their minds when they lost 3 in a row. Like they don't understand that like the 5th position is for like the team that's generally good that's having a bad run of luck,
right,
or whatever.
So y'all, this is the kind of, whether you call it bull crap, whether you call it stuff you want to hear, but this is what you're going to hear over the next 6-8 weeks, and I'm excited for it. We're going to have some good spots here. So, I guess with that, let's close
What are we closing?
I think we're closing it out, man.
We're closing out.
Let's close it out.
That was really fun.
I know, it was fun. This is, again, the PETM Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at PETM Podcast, and of course you can follow me at Tailgate Mayor,
and you can follow me at Pregame ENG, Andrew Sherwin, and you can email us at PETMpodcast@gmail.com.
Hit us up on that G-Chat.
Hit us up on the G-Chat. We didn't get much out of our producer, the Frizz, at THEFRIZ11, but hopefully she'll cuss us out one day for y'all to enjoy.
Y'all, I'm looking forward to the off season, man. We're gonna have fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have some fun topics.
We'll talk to y'all next time.
Woo! Thumbs up. Did I miss the cut?